the more grateful we are, the more connection we will have with God, right? And the more grateful we are, we can even begin to recognize what we need to be grateful for before it even happens. I just have been able to roll so much easier and with more gratitude and with more faith because I'm allowing life to be, right? Instead of feeling like I have to do life, I'm allowing life to be.
I've had the great honor and privilege of getting to know the CEO and founder of Halftee, Amanda Barker. And I am just super, super excited to just like dig into your brain, Amanda, because you think differently from most people. And I've had the privilege of working with you for the last 9 months. And I would just love to hear, first of all, about you, what brought you to Ascend, to working with me, and like all the things. Let's see where this conversation goes.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Lucky you, we get to keep talking. Allison's right. We have been on the phone for quite a while, solving all of the world's problems. But
Right.
um, I'm super excited to be here today too. Thanks again for having me. Honestly, what brought me, I'll just be straight up. It was my really good friend Alicia and her invitation to come and to come to one of your 2-day events. And it sparked some interest in me. Alicia, I love her to pieces. I've seen how she has really metamorphosed into a whole new human being, taking all of the things that are wonderful and juicy about her and focusing those things up and just turning her into a person that has so much direction and light and confidence and focus that I really loved seeing that. And I just thought, well, if this is something she's been doing, then I would love to just tap into that as well. So that's really what brought me in was Alicia Harrison. And then that 2-day event was so fantastic. And we talked about this a little bit while we were on the phone before, but these topics seem a little bit aloof. They seem a little bit, hokey or I don't know what you use a word. What's the word that you use?
Esoteric.
Esoteric. Yes.
Esoteric.
Yes, which just feels not, it just doesn't feel, I don't know, doable or even
Mhm.
reachable or whatever. And when I came to the retreat, what I was really looking for was these sort of topics and conversations, but were centered around God's truth and we're centered
Mhm.
around gospel centered teachings, which is super important to me because I've had a lot of experience where a lot of my friends have gotten into these conversations and gotten really involved with the femininity factor, which was what the 2-day thing was. But the femininity side of society, the masculinity and what that looks like, but then they lose themselves and they I feel like they separate themselves from God in doing so. And that stressed me out.
Uh-huh.
And so I loved that I could find a place where we were talking about these topics, but also still super inclusive to God's truths, right? And that there
Mhm.
are truths that align and work together to really teach truth in a different, and not different, but in more and more light. So that's what that's what I loved about that 2-day retreat. That's what got me here. And I just have been slowly changing ever since, I guess. I hope. Anyways, that's the hope.
Oh, for sure. For sure you have. Slowly, I would say. No, relatively speaking, it's been very, very fast in what you've changed because you're very driven, you're very motivated, you're like me, you have your own company, you're scaling your company, you've got a team, like all of those things. And it was all about hustle and get it done faster. And that's just kind of how you're wired. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm wired much the same way. But I found that the hustle was just sucking my soul dry. And then it was like everybody gets a piece of me, but then who am I? And the people I love most get the smallest part of me. So then I was feeling guilty all the time. And in fact, I remember we had a conversation once because we were talking about like, you need to slow down. I need to take some downtime. I needed to go in the backyard. I needed to soak up some sun and you need to read a book. And that was hard for you, wasn't
Yes. Yeah, it was so hard. I thought, well, yeah, if I could have a podcast on and I can be sweeping while I'm back there and cleaning things up and then, whatever. You're right. It is hard. It's so hard to slow down and it's more hard to trust that the work that you've put in is enough and that to trust others and God to take those things that we've put in and to just exponentially make them greater. So yeah, that it is hard for me to sit and but I'm learning.
Yes, it's a skill. It's a
It
skill.
is.
And because we're taught that downtime means we're lazy, or if we take time off, now we're going to be behind. So we have to work that much harder. So it's not even worth it to take a vacation because then we're 2 weeks behind and totally stressed out. Or we have to work 80-hour weeks or 100-hour weeks before we can go on vacation. At
Mhm.
least that's been my experience with like the slowdown. But I had somebody explain it to me that it's really important to create white space because white space is where we get guidance. It's where we get inspiration. It's where we reconnect. It's where we realign. It's not in all of the busy and all of the action. It's in the white space. So instead of being like, okay, well, I'm just lazy or I'm going to justify all my hard work by taking a nap, instead of justifying any of that, it's, I need my connection time with the Lord. I need my connection time. I need my realignment time. I need to rejuvenate. And I can't do that when I'm running on the business treadmill or any sort of treadmill. I need to stop and I need to breathe and I need to connect. But you've
Mhm.
gotten very, very good at it. Have you noticed any tangible things? Like have you noticed your anything tangible like in your thoughts? And when I say tangible, I mean like, oh, I wasn't before I was creating white space and taking downtime. I lived my life this way and my relationships were like this and my business was like this and now I've noticed some shifts.
Yeah, I really have noticed some significant shifts. The biggest shift is that I have learned to slow down. So because I've slowed my pace just a smidge, right? When my kids want to have a conversation, when they want me to just sit and listen and be present, before I felt like I was just constantly like, okay, when's this? Like, are you done? Are you done? Are you done? Are you done? Like,
Mhm.
okay. And now I find that I'm totally happy to just sit and to listen and to be engaged in it. And also, when we're in that speed up mode, we want to come very quickly with an answer so that they can be done talking faster, right? Or we want to give the advice. So the quicker the advice, the quicker the answer, the quicker this conversation is over, the quicker I can get on to something else, right? And
Mhm.
what it has also allowed me to better be okay with is just literally listening. Um, our kids, our employees, our friends aren't necessarily coming to us because they need an answer or they necessarily even want advice. Sometimes they just need to rant. If we're trying to always look for the answer in the rant or trying to always look for the advice that I'm supposed to give to get this person to shut up faster, then we miss the opportunity to just be a good listener. And so it's given me the patience to just be okay with listening too, with absolutely no need to give advice, no need to give an answer. Um, and that has allowed me to connect differently with people. And I think that that's something that value very, very much. I love people. And so because I'm always constantly in this really busy mindset and even speed of life,
Mhm.
that I'm not being able to connect with people the way that I want to connect with people because I'm not really ever slowing down long enough to make that connection. So
Well, and
that's
you
helped me.
yeah, and you bring up a huge point because we live in a time where it's easier to connect than ever before with technology. And yet, more and more, I see how disconnected, and people have told me how absolutely disconnected they feel from everything. They feel disconnected from their body, from their dream, from their spouse, from their children. From like, it's just everything is disconnected. They don't feel seen, they don't feel heard. And it's just, okay, what else do I need to do to connect? And what you need to do is slow down and create that space within yourself so that you can hold that space. And I know, I mean, that's kind of like energy woo stuff, but like you really are, you're literally holding space. It's like an invisible bucket that you can hold for them, and you're not in charge of fixing the bucket. You just hold the bucket, and then they just get to into the bucket, and you're like, okay, but this isn't mine, so we're just going to toss this out. I don't have to recycle this or reuse it or repurpose it. Like, but I can just hear and connect with you as a person, and presence too. Like being present, I has been so hard for me in the past because I'm like you. I'm like, can we just get on with this connecting part so that I can, I'm like
Can
thinking
we
about
just feel connected so I can go do something else?
right. Is this over? Are we done? Is this complete? Are we good? I remember going to Disney World and we're on a ride about to get on, and I'm talking to them about, okay, what are we going to do next? Where are we going next? And like
Right.
I couldn't even appreciate the fun we were having right
Right.
then.
Exactly.
It was always the next thing. And then it just becomes like, what's the point? Why are we doing all of this? And what are we doing? And what's the point?
It's true. It's true. Something else that I've always said I was going to do and then I never do is I've completely gone off social from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Um, and that was a hard ask for me because my job is social. That's what I do so much of. And so I would justify working, right? Um,
Mhm.
and just taking this course and learning the principles and the things also has just given me that permission to turn those things off and stick to it and really stick to it and do it. So um again, boundaries, and that's something that just popped in my head that I've been so good about, and it's that has provided that bucket for me to have available, right? In those early mornings when we're getting kids ready and we're starting our day, and even uh after those hours once kids are off, how am I spending my time? And am I present and doing those things that I want to have done so when I get home from work, they're done already, instead of sitting on my phone and justifying, looking at different social media aspects and saving these and sending texts. And it saved my team so much too, because I've taken myself off my phone, which means I'm not having all these wild ideas and texting my team all hours of the night, right? Saying, oh my gosh, look at this. This is so great. We need to implement it, making them feel like they need to respond, or also not having those boundaries around work. So it really has that's been a huge shift for me too, is intentionally carving out times to have more boundaries with my time.
Well, and I think that you hit it right there with two things: intention and boundaries with yourself.
Mhm.
When we're more intentional, and that's not to say you can never watch Netflix again and you can never binge watch something again, but it's very interesting how unintentional mass population is with their time and how wobbly those boundaries are, and we just justify it, and then we wonder why we're burned out all the time. But I was talking with somebody who stopped, he got off social media, but his girlfriend is still on social media. And so she's just, clicking away on her phone and scrolling away on her phone. And he's like, do you know how much other stuff you could be doing right now instead of that? Like, oh, you could be learning so much more. And I don't think it was to shame her at all. He just realized, yeah, you go through that withdrawal, but then you get over the withdrawal and you're like, I can actually learn another language if I want. I have plenty of time. I can actually go play. I can take care of my body. I can take care of my spirit and my soul and all of those things. But man, they're addicting. It's
They
true,
are.
they're addicting. But when you're intentional, like when I would tell you to go like create space and create downtime, there was intention behind it. And the intention was not to escape, even if it was like get a book and read a book. That's not a self-help book or a business book. You can't do that. You can't do
Right,
that.
right.
It's intentional to get you into feminine energy, which is creation energy, which is the vision and the flow and connection and connecting to your body and all of that. And it's like it almost for me became like, okay, here's the goal. Here's the objective, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I'm going to I'm going to stay here until I feel connected to my body or connected to the Lord or whatever it is that I'm wanting to, or I'm wanting to feel peace or I'm wanting to feel flow. And we had talked a little before we started recording, and you had talked about how pivotal that has been for you, those daily things. Will you talk about that?
Yeah, so I feel like I said in the beginning, I have studied a lot of things. I'm a Division 1 athlete. I played basketball in high school, so I'm a very I'm a pretty high leveled athlete and just discipline. That's what drives me. I love it. I thrive in it. So all the mindset things I've been studying for a really, really long time. And but there's so much information out there that we all know it's important. And I think collectively we've allowed these different ways of thinking, and we've allowed the psychological aspects in our lives to have more of a play, right? Like when I was playing basketball, probably about in the high school, probably, which would have been about 30 years ago, very little was talked about psychological effects. What can we do psychologically to help us become a better athlete? What can we do psychologically to shoot better, to compete at a higher level? Those sort of things really didn't start to be talked about, I don't think, collectively, as far as I'm concerned, in my experience, until I was in college. And then even then it was still quite minimal. And now I am a basketball high school coach, and we bring a ton of that psychological aspect into coaching as well, but probably not even close to as much as we ought to. It just has to do with time and finances, finding that money to be able to support a psychological aspect and trainer to come into your program to help. But my
Mhm.
point is that there's a lot of information out there, and there's a lot of acceptance around that. And there really has become a huge shift in our culture and in our societies, that there needs to be a lot more talked and learned about that. But the problem is that you have all of those things, but it's so ambiguous and it's so giant that you don't know how to take it and to crunch them up into bite sizes so you can actually apply them into your life. That is so hard to do. And so when I started the program, especially the modules and the little things that started to happen, like libs, really coming into our libs, our affirmations, our daily affirmations, which, Allison, I already did daily affirmations every single day in my journal, but when they're not directed in the right energy, they're not as effective. And so being able to learn how to effectively write libs that are specific to what I want was very, very powerful for me. And so taking those libs, and doing those exercises, I recorded them, I listened to them in the morning, I write them in my journal, I do them midday. You had us record them in a different way, say them a different way, and then at night 5 times. I could really find power in that one little shift, in really refining what those affirmations look like, specific to what I was desiring for me, Amanda, not what Pinterest said were great affirmations to say every day, right?
Mhm.
Not the I love the Insight Timer. It's a meditation app. I love that. You could do affirmations on that. You can pull affirmations on YouTube. You can pull really great meditations all on affirmations, but they're very ambiguous, and they're very for
Mhm.
everybody. They're not meant for Amanda Nell Barker. And that has been probably the most pivotal, impactful aspect to date, are those libs, and really, really thinking about those. And it was so exciting. It's so funny how long it takes. And I don't know why. Maybe I'm just slower than normal, but what I realized was that those libs, because we also, the next step to those libs and what we are taught and what we really focus on is the book, The Science of Getting Rich, right?
Mhm.
And really studying that. And that was so fun. Guys, that book is like, how many pages is that book, Allison?
Like 93.
Yeah,
It's
93 pages. You can listen to that bad boy on 1.75 in like 45 minutes.
yeah.
Um, so that book is so powerful, and there are so many nuggets. But again, if some normal person just decide, oh, that looks like a good book, I'm going to read it. If you don't have the broken down pieces that you've put together, kind of like a little class type, syllabus behind The Science of Getting Rich, you you will not do the little things, the affirmations that go along with each of those chapters. I have those recorded out. I listen to those every day. Like those little bite-sized pieces to the principles and to the books and to the new philosophies that we're learning. That is what's been the most impactful, is being able to break those down and then to easily, and not doing more, because we all want to do more all the time. If I'm not doing more, I'm not being productive. I'm not going to be blessed. I'm not going to have enough. I'll let people down. I'm just going through all the things that trigger. These are all my issues, right? If I'm not doing more, then then I'm going to get left in the dust. And these were things that were so doable, and that I could put in and really do these tiny little shifts and put them into my life and see significant shifts in my being, and in my personal relationships, in my business, in my coaching, in all, in all things. So
Yeah.
I love that. I
Yes.
just love
Yeah. So let
it
me
all.
give English to what
Oh,
Amanda
yes.
was saying.
Sorry, I'm
So
just assuming everyone knows.
oh, it's good. One day everybody will know what LIBS are. So LIBS stands for Locking in Belief Systems, and it's a proprietary system that I created with God's help to very quickly, straightforward, change those subconscious beliefs that run all of our programs and create our reality. And so the difference between LIBS and affirmations is that affirmations are so general and so vague. Like for example, money comes to me easily and effortlessly. Well, everybody is actually experiencing that right now. When was the last time you had to take a paycheck to the bank? It's just direct deposited into your account. You don't have to do anything. You just swipe your card. And so that's too ambiguous with money. It's already coming to you easily and effortlessly. And people are like, well, that's not what I meant. That doesn't matter. This is what you said, and this is what you're getting. And so when we're vague and ambiguous and you don't actually believe like it's going to help you right where you're at in this moment, then they get very discouraging and demoralizing very fast, quite actually. And then people are just like, affirmations are just a joke. But I love Joseph Murphy, and he said, you got to know what you're doing and why you're doing it. So I really break down like how the brain works and how the subconscious works and why it's so important to just immerse yourself in those new beliefs, those new decisions that you're wanting to make for how life works for you, and about life, not new decisions to do things, but how things work for you and about things. And then as you are just really like conscious, like you have been just diving into them, and just like you've got the intention behind it, you know what you're doing, you know why you're doing it, and you're literally rewiring your brain. And then when you couple that with the science of getting rich, if you were just to get the science of getting rich, you'd be looking for the affirmations at the end of every chapter. And you're like, where are the affirmations? They're not there. I created them. Because I was like, people need energy work through this to help move through blocks, because energy work is a real thing. And they need some affirmations that will help anchor in what they're learning. So that's what she's talking about. I think you can get that on my website. But yeah, couple those two together and life must change. Like it must, because you've changed. You know, you've got more connection with your children, greater connection with your spouse, your business is skyrocketing, and you're taking yourself out of the business a little bit more so that the team can, you're opening up trust so the team can run. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I'm hearing is that
Yeah,
the team is getting.
I just feel so much more. I don't know, it's almost like a loose, I can't, it's so hard to explain, and we talked about this before too, right?
Mhm.
And that's why I think especially chapter 4. So you can cut me off at any time if none of this makes sense, but in the Science of Getting Rich, chapter 4, it's not chapter 4, it's chapter 7, talks about gratitude. The more grateful we are, the more connection we will have with God, right? And the more grateful we are, we can even begin to recognize what we need to be grateful for before it even happens. And so that's the shift in me too, is that I just have been able to roll so much easier and with more gratitude and with more faith, because I'm allowing life to be, right? Instead of feeling like I have to do life, I'm allowing life to be. And that's not a lot of me 9 months ago would have said that's lazy, that's
Responsible.
irresponsible, right?
Mm-hmm.
And but it's not. It's just it feels so much more peaceful to live life this way today than it did 9 months ago. And yet it feels like I'm more in control now than I ever have been too, which is so fascinating.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like the great lie is if you're not always doing, then you're lazy. So we got to keep doing. But our soul, like when I tell people, you want to slow down and create some more white space and do things that really bring you pleasure and joy. And I just watch their eyes light up and they do this. I would love that. Well, that's
Hmm.
how it actually works. So instead of micromanaging those things that feel out of your control, you're actually creating boundaries and control with the things that are well within your bounds to control and you are meant to control, which is you. And that emotional regulation and knowing what's going on so that you're not freaking out all the time with all of the upheaval and the ups and downs. And then it's like, oh, it's like the peace that, and that's, I think that's the underlining thing that everybody is looking for these days is can I just have peace? And yes,
Yes.
but there are specific things that you must do. And I really think the peace is a tangible. Peace is being able to go to sleep easily at night. Peace is
Hmm.
allowing yourself to, on a random Wednesday, go work out in the middle of the day because that's what you want to do, or take half the day off because you're just off and you need to reconnect. And that's why I've started calling myself the obedient rebel because I'm like, you know what? I am tired of obeying society's constructs that aren't working for us, but I want to be obedient to God's laws, to the universal laws that actually work every time. Because and life totally changes when you do
Well,
that.
and also, I don't wake up anymore saying I want to take a half a day off. Like
Mm.
that's what's so fascinating with this all too is that I'm not burnt out. Like that peace and really it's an underlying faith, right? And
Uh-huh.
just that base faith and knowing that it really is. I know we say it so often, everything's going to work out. It really is. And as you get more connected with God and in gratitude in those libs and in those in trust, right, with God, all of a sudden, when you say that it's going to work out, it doesn't feel like you're giving yourself a pep talk. You're making a
Yeah.
statement, not a pep talk,
Yes.
right? Right.
Yes.
And that's what's so powerful is it's going to work out. And you can say it with confidence and you can say it with even a ton of like question marks. I have no idea how it's going to, but I can say with certainty, I know that it is.
Yeah.
So that's just so exciting and it's just so liberating. That's the other word that I love too. It's a
Yes.
liberating feeling to be able to approach each day, not burnt out, not saying I can't do this anymore. At work, some days you get so tapped out some days. And I'll just say, I quit. I quit. I'm quitting for 5 minutes. I need you to rehire me in 5 minutes. But right now I've quit and I no longer work here. And we all start laughing and they're like, she's quit again. Our CEO quit. Hope she comes back this time. And it's a joke. But ironically, I haven't even said that. And that's like meant to be like a play, right? Like anybody can quit for 5 minutes. If you're hating life, just say I quit for 5 minutes and come back to it. But I haven't even felt that need to even, you know, humorously approach that
Uh-huh.
burnout or that whatever.
Wow.
So I don't know. It's been a wonderful, wonderful experience to really dig and the epiphanies. Uh, an epiphany that I realized that I didn't realize that I realized was those libs, which are what I didn't even know that's what they were called for real. What
Yeah.
is it called again? What are libs?
Locking in belief systems.
Locking in belief systems. What I really didn't realize is those are the start. That is your thought. That is the first thought, right? Like locking in those belief systems, that is where you're going to come back to. And when things are spiraling, you're going to come back to that thought, and it's going to be that thought that is going to help propel you to get what you want. And I didn't realize, like, for quite a while I was like, what do I want, what do I want, what do I want, and trying to put a visual to what I wanted. And all of a sudden I realized what I wanted were those locked in beliefs. That's what, ultimately, at the core, that's what I wanted, right?
Mhm.
So then I could build out from that and say, okay, those locked in limited, or those locked in beliefs, what does that look like? What do those look like to me? Like, if one of my beliefs is I have meaningful connections with my family and friends. And what I realized is when I was starting to work and really dig and say, what does that look like? It was already happening, because I had already done the work of putting the thought in motion, right? Of
Mhm.
planting that thought and allowing that to go and grow. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have those meaningful connections with my family and with my friends. And what's happened is they've just exponentially gotten better and better and better. There's a lot of power in this approach, and there's a lot of power, especially when we can sit back a little bit and be grateful and recognize those changes that are happening.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that. I love that. Because then it's not efforting your way. It's just, oh, oh, look at how much control and power I actually have. This is beautiful. This is amazing. Oh, I love this. I love this. Okay. So we've gone over our time, but I know people are interested, like, okay, where do we find you and what is Halftee? So will you tell us about that and how we can find you?
Yes, of course I can. So Halftee is a layering top for women. We've been in business for almost 16 years. We're coming up on our 16-year, our birthday in October. And I developed the product 16 years ago, just in my house with my mom. I was tired of, it primarily started for me for religious purposes. I wear garments, and so there are a lot of limitations when it comes to the fashion world, and
Mhm.
what we can modestly wear and what we cannot modestly wear. And so it really just came down to, I was tired of wearing two full length layering tops just to get the look and the modest coverage that I need. So ultimately, we play around with this and we tease a lot, but we're basically the new and improved Dickie, where it actually stays in place. Cousin Eddie on Christmas Vacation. But uh, anyways, that's essentially what we are. And we've had significant, wonderful success. We've been all over the world. We've been on home shopping channels in Germany and Italy and Canada. Currently here in the States, we're on home shopping channels, but we've had a lot of success. And what I've learned is that modesty is a spectrum, right? Just like with everything else. And women, as women, we all battle the exact same issues. We hate our arms. Sometimes we get tired of our boobs hanging out. We get tired of fidgeting and getting dressed every morning, wondering if I need to wear a camisole with this or jacket with that, or
Mhm.
tugging and pulling, pinning, taping, all those things. We're always doing it, regardless of religious preferences, regardless if you wear garments or you don't. Modesty is a spectrum, and the different hats that we wear throughout the day require different levels of modesty too. And they require how we show up. We show up differently when we're going to, out on a date with our husband, as opposed to our workplace, and or we're going to the PTA meeting, or we're headed to work and we're a nurse, or so many different hats we wear as women.
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, we all struggle with the same issues when it comes to getting dressed. And those are just the tiny little fixes in the fashion world that we all need help with. So it's been super fun to grow a company. I've learned so stinking much. It's crazy to think, but that's essentially what we are, is we empower women to dress modestly and effortlessly with ease. And they basically cut off at the right below your bra line. They literally are half a tee. And they come in tons of different sleeve lengths, tons of different colors. And we sell also quite a bit of boutique items that are also kind of aligned with Halftee, need a Halftee, what you're going to sell out on the shelves, or other modest ideas or modest dresses, modest jumpers, those sort of things. So that's what we are. And everyone calls me the Halftee lady, basically.
I love that. It's so needed. And like you said, with regardless of a religious preference, I see women that are, have a beautiful figure and are wearing, the sleeveless, strapless, and they're always like tugging and they're beautiful and they just aren't comfortable. And it's obvious that they're not comfortable
Mhm.
and they're pulling down their skirts and, trying not to act like they're pulling down their skirt, but it's like, oh, you feel so self-conscious with that. And so I love that. Dickies I tried those way, way back in the day, and I'm like, these are ridiculous. And so I love that. Now, do you have an Instagram that we can send people to
Yep. So
Instagram?
we have a website. Halftee.com is our website. You can shop all of our line there. You can follow us on social media. My personal social media Instagram account it's Amanda Bean, and that's just a lot of things business, mom life, all things, all sorts of things that way. And then our Instagram and Facebook are both at Halftee. So you can follow us Halftee there. We'd love to have you there. We'd love to have you part of our community.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, people you want to be part of her community. Is she not amazing? She is just so grounded and so inspirational, and I love it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you.
for
Thank you,
making
Allison.
women more comfortable in their clothes and in their body and feeling flattered and sexy and flirty and without having to
All the
have,
things.
12 inches of cleavage hanging out.
Right.
So
Or, it's really our arms. I mean,
could be
if we could
arms.
get a little better reading on our arms I mean, I can have ladies come in and they'll have an arm like the size of a 4-year-old and say, I hate my arms. And I'm looking at her thinking, what do you hate about? I mean, there's not much to hate, but
Yeah.
it's just it's just a collective. We just have these weird things in our minds and we get our mindset, but it's been so fun to read the reviews and to really be able to liberate women when
Yes.
it comes to getting dressed.
Yes. Ah, I love it. That's an important mission. So important. Well, thank you for being here. Those of you who are watching, thanks for watching. Thanks for those of you who are tuning in. We love you to pieces. We're grateful for you. And remember, until next time, prosperity becomes you. Bye bye.